What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the first episode of the Bay Area Beat in nearly 6 weeks. I appreciate you all for staying on and continuing to be a listener despite a very long hiatus, a hiatus that I didn't fully expect. I've actually been traveling all over the world the last 6 weeks. I went to LA for my little brother's college graduation, and then I went to San Francisco to spend a week with family. Went to a Giants game, saw them beat the Royals, so now I'm 4-0 on the season in Giants games. Went back to New York for a couple days, then went to India for a week for my friend's incredible Indian 5-day wedding. Went to Sri Lanka afterwards, where I was snorkeling and scuba diving and just vibing by the beach for a week straight. Came back to New York for less than 24 hours, went to Chicago for a week for a work conference, came back, been here for about a week, situated on the ground, ready to return, ready to get back to the Bay Area Beat, get all my fun, active listeners in the chat, in the Spotify comments. I know episodes have been pretty inconsistent the last month or two with my long break, but I think this reset was much needed as I'm thrilled to start it up again. I got some newfound energy. I got some awesome guests lined up, including the one I have today. I'm going to have my buddy Jack Loder, who's going to be coming on from KNBR, the sports leader in the Bay Area. We're going to talk the Giants' first half, what's gone right, what's gone wrong. We get into the Rafael Devers trade, obviously, and then we'll close by doing a little fun draft, something I want to do more in these summer episodes where there's a little less topics and storylines to go into and just get fun, get some drafts going, maybe some Mount Rushmores. But we'll be getting into that. We'll be doing an episode once, maybe twice a week the rest of the summer, and then we got some awesome plans for football season. I wanted to get into Warriors free agency preview on this episode, but we ran a little bit long with time. So I decided I'm going to do another episode in 2 or 3 days with another guest where we're going to dive into and maybe recap some of the Warriors' early offseason moves. But I thought to kind of put these last 6 weeks together, to put a button on these last 6 weeks where I haven't podcasted, I wanted to do the 5 biggest things that happened in sports, in Bay Area sports specifically. And there's been a lot of big storylines that I missed. So let's start it off. All right, let's begin. So number 5, not as much of a Bay Area centric storyline, but just a national sports storyline, has to be these massive NBA trades that have happened over the last week or two. Last week, Kevin Durant gets traded to the Houston Rockets. The Rockets sent out Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, the 10th overall pick, which Phoenix ended up taking Duke center Malawak. I forget his first name. I think a pretty underwhelming package personally, but KD is instantly going to make a team that a Rockets team who was second last year in the standings, played the Warriors, took the Warriors 2-7, but was missing like that bona fide score type, a KD who can kind of get you a bucket in crunch time. They weren't a very good crunch time offense. And I think KD is really gonna help that. And Jalen Green was barely playing in that series. Outside of game 2, he was borderline unplayable. His defense is not very good. Dylan Brooks, we see this time and time again, is kind of getting shipped off from team to team as, you know, a great glue guy for a young culture to help build that culture and build a defensive kind of FU mentality. But as soon as that team kind of progresses, reaches their next step, which is true contending, like the Grizzlies thought they were in a couple of years ago, Dylan Brooks gets the X. So big trade there. A few other big ones have to be Desmond Bane going to the Magic. It looks like the Grizzlies are kind of moving towards a rebuild, and not sure what that looks like for Ja, but giving up Desmond Bane, who's their second or third best player, is certainly moving in a different direction than what we thought of the Grizzlies the last couple of years as a true young contending team. And then a few other smaller ones. Kristaps to the Hawks, Drew Holiday to the Blazers, which I don't understand whatsoever. The Blazers are not a Drew Holiday away from contending. I think Anthony Simons is a far higher upside guy, making less money. Drew Holiday, you're going to be paying him $35 million when he's a 37-year-old. And when defense is your best attribute, I don't really think that holds as well as many other scorers, facilitators. Yeah, that trade just kind of befuddled me a little bit. And lastly, Jordan Poole, JP3, the beloved former Warrior, got sent to the New Orleans Pelicans for a package of CJ McCollum. Kind of just shows, I think a lot of Warrior fans are reminiscent of how awesome JP3 was in that title year, but his defense is about as bad as it gets in the league. And when you're a volume scorer and not always a very consistent, reliable volume scorer, then your defense needs to be playable, and it's not. And I think we're seeing teams kind of flip him and trying to get under that contract, that $35 million a year contract. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not happy that all we got was Chris Paul from that deal, but I think we're seeing what the rest of the league thinks about Jordan Poole. But went way too deep into those. Let's rattle these off. Number 4 on the top 5 things that have happened since our last episode is the Thunder beating the Pacers in the NBA Finals. Don't have too much there other than the fact that I think the Warriors were really, really actually a lot closer than we think. Steph Curry doesn't get injured. We win game 1 against Minnesota. I think that series goes 6. I think the Warriors win. Maybe not, but we see that a Pacers team which had exceeded all expectations, no one assumed that they were going to be a finals team. And the fact that they were able to get there, push Oklahoma City to 7 games while Halliburton was hobbled the last couple, obviously tears his Achilles in the most gut-wrenching way possible to end the series. But I think that just shows the Warriors could have competed with OKC. I think a lot better than Minnesota. They gave OKC trouble the last 2 regular seasons, and it's a team that relies a lot on Shea. And Jalen Williams had an awesome series, but I think the Warriors would have put him in difficult positions. And as elite as a defense as OKC is, we saw that in 2022 with the Celtics. That is an incredible defense of the Warriors, and particularly Steph Curry was able to find ways to beat an attack. And as you go throughout a longer series, you really start to better understand how to game plan. All right, number 3 on the list has to be the Valks. Exceeding all expectations. They had an over-under win total of 8.5 before the season started. They're now 8-7 with the current 6 seed in the playoffs. They're 1 win away from exceeding their win total with less than half the season. And it's been pretty remarkable. You know, I will be perfectly honest. I'm not as big of a WNBA fan as I am the core major men's sports, but I have been watching as much as I can and hearing a lot from my girlfriend who's always sending me the highlights of their big wins, their 26-point win over the Aces earlier in the year, their win against Caitlin Clark in the Indiana Fever last week. So that's got to be pretty awesome. I mean, shout out to the Valks, exceeding all expectations anyone could have had for them. Maybe a playoff team would be the first expansion team to ever make the playoffs. So shout out to Valhalla. Pretty awesome stuff there. Number 2, this is going to be a little bit of a tandem one. Fred Warner's contract extension, his 3-year, $63 million deal to become the highest paid middle linebacker in the NFL. And then the big one, the most important one, the one that happened 6 hours after I posted my last podcast 6 weeks ago. So probably feels like a distant memory, but the signal caller, the franchise, Brock Purdy signing his 5-year, $230 million deal, make him the 5th highest paid annual quarterback in the NFL, $53 million a year. Love it. A little bit high for what I was hoping it would be, but look, this is a guy that's made $800K for the first 4 years of his Niners career and took them to the Super Bowl, took them to another NFC Championship game. Brock's a top 10 quarterback in this league. He's done everything that's been asked of him since his rookie year. The reason his head coach and GM still have a job after taking and trading up for Trey Lance a couple years ago is because of Brock Purdy. And frankly, that's just what the going rate is for a starting quarterback in the NFL in 2025. Now, a lot of people think because we went from paying Brock $800,000 to $53 million a year that the Super Bowl window's over. And I think those people, mostly outside of San Francisco, are a bunch of BS, because this team is now built and has the same foundation, the same core as the Super Bowl team from 18 months ago. They have their signal caller, their franchise quarterback in place for the next minimum 5 years, if not longer. And I think this is just a brand new window that they're starting. And yet they might not have the margin for error that they had when they were paying Brock less than $1 million a year. But they still have George Kittle. They still have Fred Warner. They still have Trent Williams. They still have Brock Purdy. The foundations of this team are still there, and they had a great draft last year, and they need to ace this draft in order for that window to kind of continue to expand. But I have a lot of confidence in the decision makers making these decisions, in John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. And it's getting me excited for Niners season, just now 2 months away. But this brings us to our number 1, our champion for top 5 moments that I've missed in my podcast. And I think it's an obvious one for anyone listening to this. It's what we're going to be talking about today. Rafael Devers getting traded to the Giants about 10 days ago at this point. It was for Kyle Harrison. It was for Jordan Hicks, a couple of prospects, James Tibbs, who was the Giants' first round pick in 2024. And does seem like he has the highest potential out of the prospect group they got, along with Jose Bello. A lot of people from the Boston side of things have considered this a salary dump similar to the scales of Mookie Betts, as Boston didn't get a Bryce Eldridge. They didn't get one of the Giants' top 3 prospects back. James Tibbs is slowly making his way up that list, but he's years away from contending. And frankly, Buster Posey put his you know what on the line and said, I'm tired of finishing in second and third and fourth. And he made the biggest splash the Giants have seen in probably 30 years since Jeff Kent was traded to the Giants in, I believe, 1996. I was born in 1998, so probably shows a little bit. This is the biggest Giants trade of my lifetime, I think. And it's just a signal that this team is ready to compete. And he's got 8 years left on his deal, and he seems to really be primarily playing DH, and is not going to be a plus defender if he does play even bits of first base. And I don't think we'll see much at third base, but this is a bat that the Giants have not had since, you could argue, Buster Posey, but he has stuff that Buster Posey never had. He has 35, 40 home run power. He can spray it to all sides of the field, and he's right now the 2-hitter for the Giants. Maybe they move him to 3 if a few guys can kind of, Willie Adameses of the world can kind of pick up their end of the bargain. But this is an incredible trade for the Giants. Didn't give up too much. Kyle Harrison has been hit or miss. I think he's going to have a good young career if he eventually is able to kind of get his command under control. But like, he was probably always destined to be the 3 at best, likely 4 middle of the rotation starter for the Giants. And when you have Logan Webb at 29, when you have Robbie Ray, when you have Landon Roop and Hayden Birdsong waiting in the wings, along with Carson Wisenhunt, who's still in AAA, you have a plethora, an overabundance of pitching. That's where you need to go and say, this lineup is consistently in the bottom 10 in OPS, has been for a couple years now. And a lot of the splashy signings of Willie Adames have not really shaken things up the way the Giants have wanted it to. And go out, get the big fish. Rafael Devers will be the biggest name traded the next month as the trade deadline. I have zero doubt in that. He's a top 25 player in baseball. And maybe he's going to be the one that finally breaks the 30 home run curse. I know I've talked about that kind of ad nauseum, but it's unbelievable. We've not had a home run hitter hit 30 home runs in Oracle Park since 2006, maybe 2007. It was Barry Bonds, whoever the last one was to do it. So can't be more excited. It's revived, any sort of midseason lull I've had about the Giants. And as I'm taping this, they're about to lose to the White Sox, who set a modern record last year for most losses in a season. They're about to lose the series to the White Sox after losing and getting swept to the Marlins the series prior. So we're going to dive into that. That's my top 5 biggest things. Ton of stuff's happened since I've done my last podcast. And I'm sorry I wasn't able to record it at the moment these things happened. I was traveling, I was there, but we recapped it, and you shouldn't expect any more long hiatuses moving forward. I'm going to be tuned in once a week, twice a week, depending on if we get a big storyline. Another Rafael Devers trade would certainly make the list. But yeah, let's get into it. I have Jack coming on. We're recapping Giants baseball in the next 30 minutes, talking everything about the first half of the season, looking ahead to the second half, what the Giants may look for in a trade deadline a couple of weeks away, maybe a second baseman. But without further ado, let's get into that. Welcome back to the first episode of the Bay Area Beat in 5 or 6 weeks. I got my buddy Jack Loder here coming in from KNBR. He's been covering the Giants all summer long, all spring long. So I think I'm going to kind of just let him go off the rip, get his frustration, gets the highs and lows out of the season. Jack, right now we're 83 games in the season. Yesterday we crossed the halfway mark. If I were to tell you preseason that the Giants were 45-38 halfway through the season, sitting in the second wild card spot, how would you feel?
I think I would give that a B. I'd say that sounds not bad, but not great. And I think that in a lot of ways is representative of how I feel after watching 81 games. And I think, it was 44-37 at the exact halfway point, and they've won one and lost one since. So we'll get more into it, but a decent first half of the season with a lot to be excited about, and almost equally a lot to be really worried about.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. There's been 4 or 5 guys I think could easily be on the all-star team and have really kind of carried the offense. So we'll get into those. And then 2 or 3 guys in the rotation who have really held it down. And outside of that, it's been a lot of disappointments. Willy Adames has been one that I was very excited for coming into the season. And, at the time signed the biggest contract in Giants history, 7 years, $185 million. He will be a Giant, outstanding a trade until 2031. And he's hitting 200 with a 600 OPS. Anyone you want to kind of get the ball rolling with in terms of who you're most frustrated or disappointed with first half?
Adames is a big one, although his second half numbers over his career are encouraging, and I think he's a guy that we're kind of in bed with for so long in the future that you got to kind of ride it out, and I do think it'll get better. I'm really worried about Bailey's bat because his defense adds so much. And Posey came on with us in the morning show a number of times and has said, basically as a catcher himself, he said, Bailey's our guy. He adds so much defensively. He manages a pitching staff so well that there's really nothing, not nothing, but almost nothing he could do at the plate. Almost not a low he could have at the plate that would warrant a change. But man, is it been brutal to watch with Patrick Bailey. It's he's actually had a couple clutch hits in the last week, ironically, which have come as very pleasant surprises. One of which Matt Williams couldn't let any of us enjoy for more than 5 seconds.
Oh God, don't even get me started on Matt Williams.
But yeah, the strikeout rate, lack of situational hitting, which is not just him, that's kind of the whole team. Bailey's bat has been really worrisome, and it's kind of been since the All-Star break of last season. He had a solid first half last year, and then was so bad in the second half of July and August. He got a little better in September, but I don't know if you remember his August last year was he didn't have an extra base hit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of just rolled over, and it's been trouble. So Adames is definitely I feel like the bigger ticket disappointment offensively, but man, Bailey has been pretty bad for most of the season at the plate.
I agree there. It's what's kind of discouraging about it too is there's not really better options both in behind him and as the backup catcher. It's been a rotating cast of a few different guys, and then even in the farm system, there isn't a catcher in the waiting in the wings to be offensively ready to kind of compete with Patrick Bailey. I like his defense is awesome. His framing ability, his ability to throw runners out at second is great, but I don't know, you have to hit above the Mendoza line to be a realistic long-term ball player in my mind.
He's an elite defensive catcher. He has made a couple mistakes on defense that I have zero patience for because of how bad he is at hitting. If he does something that's anything less than sterling defense, I'm no patience for that, Pat, because you are not adding anything at the plate.
Right. Your margin for error is extremely thin when you're getting a strikeout 40% of the time and you're getting on base 22% of the time. It's hard to have those overthrows at second. They start to become a lot more visible and a lot more evident. What about Jung-Hoo Lee? He was awesome the first 5-6 weeks of the season. I was at that Yankee series when I saw him hit 3 home runs in 2 nights and hit a double and was the best player on the field and on a field that included Aaron Judge. And he's hit under 200 since May 15th with a low OPS. And I've read some articles that his style of play, his BABIP and the way he kind of puts balls into play almost 90% of the time, makes it so his batting average is kind of variable. And I hear that, but at the same time, it's been a pretty big sample size of underwhelming play.
Yeah, a lot of rollover to second base, not really being able to cover the inside part of the plate super effectively. You see him barrel up a lot of balls in the outer half. He's obviously his type of hitter. He's going to spray the field. He isn't bull happy or anything. But there's some really troubling holes, I think, in his swing right now. And I think they're working through it. I know they're working through it in terms of Pat Burrell and the rest of the hitting staff with him. But again, he's such a unique style of hitter. It almost makes it tough to coach, tough to approach if you're a hitting coach. But he was so solid in the first couple. He was adding power in the first couple, not even a couple months. First, like you said, 5 or 6 weeks. He was a doubles machine. It was like a
Yeah.
few weeks in April, he was leading the MLB in doubles. And they weren't like cheap hustle doubles. Like he was hitting the ball to the wall. Doesn't really have a lot of home run power, but he had serious line drive and dynamic ability at the plate. He was in that 3-hole for a number of weeks there.
He's got great gap to gap, like especially playing in Oracle Park with such far right center field and left center. Like you would think he's a guy that could get 5-6 triples a year as well.
I think he was the Giants' best hitter, I think, bar none for April. And May for a little bit of May, and then he totally fell off and has just had a really miserable June. His defense is really good. Obviously, it's not like a catcher position where the defense is valued as high, but center field is pretty important, and he's been pretty flawless out there. But yeah, I would be lying if I said I wasn't worried about Jung-Hoo Lee. Like he has looked a little bit lost, especially in the last couple of weeks. A lot of weak contact that's pretty troubling.
And he's another guy like Adames who's on a 6-7 year deal, making $20 million a year. And he's 26. There's a little bit more time, I think, there to make the most out of that contract. And I know we're talking about contracts with pretty much their whole careers left on them, but or better part of their careers left on them. But like it is, and he was good last year before he got hurt, but the sample size is getting bigger, and I would love him to be that leadoff hitter. Like if you're able to have him come on lead off, and you have Rafi, you have Chapman, you have Elliot Ramos, who's been awesome, and I want to get into. You have Willy Adames. Like that first five can compete with any lineup in baseball.
I was talking to someone after the Devers trade, and we'll get into Devers more, but I said my ideal Giants lineup would be Jung-Hoo Lee leading off, like long term. Jung-Hoo Lee leading off, Willy Adames batting second, Devers batting third, Ramos batting fourth, and Chapman batting fifth. And then, you got whatever shuffle behind that. But like those five in that order, on paper, dude, that sounds like it could be a really, really good lineup. A really strong front of the line. Like there are a lot of good hitters. I know Chapman's probably has his best offensive years behind him, but he can be a very good supplemental piece in the lineup.
And he was raking those 15, 20 games before he got hurt. Like he was had an 800 OPS, had a couple home runs. Even if he's the 5 hitter, and you have Wilmer Flores, who has 55 RBIs at the 6 or 7 spot, Yaz, who's having a pretty solid Yaz season. Like it's a long lineup if guys are healthy, and the 2-3 guys who are really not contributing are able to play.
You get to that Wilmer Yaz part of the lineup where, and I've said this for a few years now. Mike Yastrzemski is a nice player. He's a 7 hitter on a good team, and he's like a good 7 hitter on a good team. I don't think a lineup can be anchored by him in the leadoff spot or sometimes the 3 spot. He's just not that dynamic of a hitter. And if you can have him as your 6 hitter, 7 hitter, I think that makes a lot more sense. So when the Giants lineup is firing on all cylinders, and of course this is a figment of my imagination because it hasn't done that at any point this year, I like to see Yaz in that hole. And by the way, Verlanders gave up a run in the first, so the Giants are down 1-0 to the White Sox, looking to take the series.
Awesome. I was about to close the disappointments group, and I think Verlander certainly deserves a spot in that list. I mean,
what were bad injury luck, some bad run support luck, but I don't think. Well, obviously his peak stuff isn't there, but I don't even think like long-term effective stuff is there.
And is it really bad injury luck? Like he's 42 years old and he's thrown 3,000 innings in his career. Like it's kind of ridiculous. I don't know.
Yeah,
like, expectations were high. He was behind Webb and before Robbie Ray when they opened at the start of the season. But yeah, he's old. He doesn't have his stuff. His velo is not there. It's a bummer he gave up a bomb against the White Sox. Let's get into Devers a little bit. We're 11 games into Devers' career. Probably the biggest Giants trade since Jeff Kent 25 years ago.
Dude, it is one of the biggest trades. Like Hunter Pence 2012 was a big one.
But a better player. I mean, like you can't argue Rafael Devers at 27.
In terms of, I guess, like retrospectively how it turned out with Pence and how much he ended up contributing to 2 titles, but I think since Pence is definitely the biggest headline of a trade.
Yeah. And Pence was, for what he brought offensively and defensively was just as important as the locker room presence he was. And the yes, getting everyone fired up in 2012 and 2014 in the locker room. But yeah, Devers, he's hitting 233. He's got above average 750 OPS. He's got the 2 bombs, one against Boston, which was awesome. He's got 10 hits in 11 games. Like, way too early of a sample size to make any real proclamations. But how are you feeling about Devers 10 games into his career?
I'm still feeling really good. I mean, there's nothing he could have done in the first, week and a half as a Giant that it would make me like worried. And he's hit a couple bombs. He's had a double. He's had an RBI double. I think he's had a couple doubles as well. What do you say? 10 hits in 11 games.
Yep.
Yeah, it's fine. It's like ideally you have him impacting the game a little more in these first 10 weeks, especially with some low scoring losses. But it's baseball, and he's a hitter. He's a pure hitter. He's gonna always find it. And he was struggling a little bit with the Red Sox when he came over. He had a really bad April, way better May, and then kind of was swooning a bit in June. I think he's kind of still getting his feet under him in this new uniform too. And when he gets hot, it's going to be really fun.
Are you concerned at all that he looks to be the long-term DH? I think, the Giants want to have Bryce Eldridge as the future first baseman, and Chapman's clearly not going to be giving up third base anytime soon. Like, this is a guy that we're going to be we keep talking about these guys we're paying for the next 6, 7, 8 years, but another guy who's going to be getting paid 25, 30 million a year through the 2034 season. And you got to produce, you got to be an 800 OPS guy to warrant that, and also not be playing any defense.
I think he will be an 800 OPS guy. Also, just a tangent on the money stuff. We can't reasonably, for the last 5 years, whine and complain about Farhan mixing and matching and being dumpster diving, and then also be outwardly worried about how much money they're spending. I want them to spend a ton of money. I don't want to discourage that. It's not my money. I love that phrase. People always say as fans, it's not my money. Like, Charles Johnson is not going to sleep hungry. Any of these nights in his later years of life. So,
and it's not like the Warriors where this money now could affect them later. Like there's a no salary cap. There's obviously a luxury tax, but I'm sure Charles Johnson, if the Giants are winning 95 games, is not going to be concerned about the extra 20 million he's spending on roster.
The stadium's paid off. The stadium is just a cash cow for them. They have money, and I want them to spend money. So I'm really excited by the fact that you have 4 position players on long-term. I'm not even going to say expensive, because I think it's representative of the market deals. And then, in the next year, you're going to have to sign Elliot Ramos to a long-term deal. They're not going to have any money coming off the books. And I think Devers, even as the DH long-term, I think he will be so locked in. Look at another Boston legend like David Ortiz. Like, he made his money. He made his legacy as a DH. I think Devers can be that, maybe not that level of legend and performer, but just a really productive and a DH that impacts the game every night.
Did you see Marco Scudero's tweet after they traded for him saying, like myself, Devers is going to have a better career in San Francisco than he did in Boston? So
yeah, you might have got Centel by that. That's not a real Marco Scudero account.
Are you serious?
It's a parody, but
wow.
I hate to tell you, I hate to bring the bad news, but if
I was fired up. I retweeted it too. God damn, man.
If you look at the bio, it says it's like Scudero fan account. Yeah,
Marco Scutaro or something. Yeah,
he has had a couple funny tweets, and it's a little ambiguous because the username is just Marco Scudero and it's a photo of him. But yeah, it's not the real guy. Sorry to rain on your parade.
That's like devastating. I've pride myself on not getting Centelled and being pretty good when it comes to Twitter parody, but damn, man, I was that
for me. Like, for me, I just live online, like, just for work. And
fair enough.
I remember looking at that, and a couple of my coworkers were like, "Is that him?" And I was like, "It doesn't look like it."
I think I was in a haze because it was like 2 hours after the Devers trade. I was coming off of like a 24-hour flight back from India, and I was just like crazy. I'll keep them coming because like I hope in the history of this podcast that's the one and only time I get Centelled. But how about we do this draft, Jack? So a little idea I had, and I didn't give Jack the most prep for this, so I apologize in advance. But we talked about, some of the disappointments, some of the guys that we'd hope be performing a little better at this part of the season. I want to look now at drafting the Giants' best 4 guys. We're going to do a snake draft, so Jack will pick, then I'll take 2 picks, then he'll take 2 picks, so on and so forth. We're just doing 4 guys. you can pick an infielder, an outfielder, a starting pitcher, and a reliever. And obviously, once that guy's taken, he's off the board. And you're going to you can choose the best player at each spot. You can choose the guy that you've found most fun, who's exceeded expectations the most.
Yeah. Okay.
Any questions? I know I kind of sprung this on you.
No, it's okay. But we're not going by category. Like I pick one player out of those 4 categories.
And then the category is like eliminated. So like if you take a starting pitcher, you don't take a second starting pitcher. Like essentially we're each going to have a starter, a reliever, an infielder, an outfielder. Depends on the order you want to make it. Obviously some strategy involved of maybe the Giants have 3 aces, so you don't go starting pitcher first, or maybe you do. But yeah, I created this whole game in my mind, and now I'm making you play it, and didn't give you much prep. So good luck.
I'm going first.
Yeah, do guess choice.
Okay, I have a safe pick in my head, and then what I think would be a ballsy pick. I don't know if the ballsy pick is going to make it past your 2 pick. So I'm going to go safe, and I'm going to take Logan Webb.
That's the right choice here. I mean, at 1-1, he's having the best season of his career halfway through the year. 2.52 ERA, 107 innings pitched, 120 Ks. He's 4th in baseball in innings pitched, 5th in Ks, 3rd best odds on FanDuel of winning Cy Young behind Paul Skeens, who just got lit up, and I believe Zach Wheeler's the other one, but has a real shot of being the all-star starter this year. I don't think you can go wrong with Logan Webb 1-1.
That hand delivers you the other starting GOAT, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, well, not only does it hand deliver me, I can save it because I know you're not going to be taking another starter. So I'm going to go Elliot Ramos. I think we both said at the start of this pod, best Giants hitter this season, most consistent at least. I wouldn't say he's had the best month, but if you put 3.5 months of baseball together, he's had the best kind of collection of. He's also been a solid defender, but offensively, he's probably going to be another all-star back. That would be back-to-back for the Giants. He's got 13 bombs, 16 doubles. He's leading the team in both on-base percentage and slugging. Yeah. So it's really kind of hard to argue against him being the Giants' best hitter. Next one, I'll leave you a good one. I'm going to go Randy Rodriguez from the bullpen, who's been just
my ballsy one.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, he's been out of this universe good for the Giants. He has a below 1, a 0.75 ERA. He's given up 3 runs in 36 appearances, 37 innings pitched. He's been the perfect setup man. It's kind of funny. He's probably the guy in the rotation I knew least about coming into the season, and I thought he'd more be a middle of the rotation or a middle reliever guy, but he's locked down that 7th inning, and I love Randy, and I guess you're on the clock now.
Dude, I was hoping you would Randy have been crazy as a 1-1?
No, because I think he's so dominant for his position group. Like
he's been the best player on the team. Like
exactly,
like
exactly.
Like if a position player was succeeding at the rate he was, he'd be like an MVP candidate. So
right.
I hope he makes the All-Star game. By the way, I've been talking to Adam Copeland, one of our afternoon hosts, has kind of been putting water on that fire. He's like, relievers don't make the All-Star game unless they're closers.
Right.
So I hope he's wrong, but I do kind of see that logic. All right, I'm going to take Wilmer. I guess he's an infielder, right? Like
he's infielder DH. Yeah. So infield is off the board. First infielder taken. Yep.
You got to categorize him as infield, and then so
he's been playing some first base too. Like he's been out there, not looking terrible out there.
Yeah, dude. Okay, so what's left for me is reliever and outfield.
Just a little bit on your Wilmer Flores point. Yeah. That was going to be the guy I wanted to take in the infield, and then I kind of dove a little more into the stats, and he was awesome the first 2 months of the season. He was leading baseball in RBIs. He seemed like every time the Giants had runners in scoring position, he was getting that clutch hit. But
that's why I think the clutch factor is why I take. I know his numbers overall aren't great, but
he's hit 1 home run. Yeah,
for a team that's very unclutch, he is the most clutch.
Totally, and he's hit 1 home run in the last 30 games. I think that for me was why I went against it, but I can't argue that there's been a lot of disappointments in the infield. So that was my backup if you took my main infield guy. Go ahead, you got one more pick.
Yeah. Okay.
You took a starter and an infielder, so you got an outfielder and a reliever left.
I was gonna say, doesn't it suck that Yaz and Jung-Hoo Lee are like low-key neck and neck in this. Which
Yeah.
after April, I would have been like, well, Yaz is just an April warrior for the entirety of his career.
Right. Right.
And he always falls off. And then in the bullpen, dude, it's they've been such a good. I'm going to take Eric Miller,
Eric Miller,
who I think has been, by and large, the second best pitcher in that bullpen, which has been a really elite group together. But the individuals have had such up and downs, like Doval and Walker. Walker more downs now lately, but Doval and Walker have had such up and downs that it's kind of been the middle relief, and then just Randy Rodriguez being an absolute dog that have kept him afloat. So yeah, Wilmer and Eric Miller are my two.
I think that's the right choice there. Eric Miller was the second guy I had. I kind of had like an honorable mention, Camilo Doval, who's regained that closing role and has 16 saves, has a 2.70 ERA. Like if you look at the numbers, it's pretty good. But his 3 blown saves have been very loud, I think. And when he's bad, go ahead.
The game I was covering the Saturday Red Sox game. They were up 3-0 in the ninth, and he gave up 2, and the tying run was on third. Like it's not just the blown saves with him. He's had a couple bad outings and non-save situations that have just like. And it's always weird with Doval, dude. You can tell within like 2 or 3 pitches.
Yeah,
if he is way on or way off.
Yeah,
you don't want that type of volatility with like a back end guy.
And speaking of like that, like I think Bob Melvin, to give a little criticism there, like I think it does feel like you can tell when Duvall and a few other guys have it within the first batter and like be a little more aggressive and pulling them. And I don't know if that is all about like yanking a guy's confidence, but I felt like Bob Melvin, and you talked about Matt Williams, who's loves to hold runners on third base and key scoring situations. Yeah. But yeah, Bob Melvin himself, I feel like has been kind of a little hit or miss in bullpen situations. And, we had Bruce Bochy for 12 years, so that is probably a hard bar to follow, but
was the bullpen maestro. Yeah.
The bullpen whisperer. Good picks. All right. So my last two, I took Ramos as my outfielder. I took Randy Rodriguez as my reliever. So I got a starter and an infielder. I'm going to go Robbie Ray. I think that's pretty obvious for the other starter role. He's been about 90% as good as Logan Webb, 2.75 ERA, 8-3 on the season. He's also got 110 Ks, looking like the best Robbie Ray season since we saw him win the Cy Young with the Blue Jays in 2021. Don't think there's too much of an argument there. And then lastly, infielder, I guess you took Wilmer. I guess I have to go Matt Chapman. Like obviously he's on the IL right now, but raking before this injury, he had over 1,000 OPS in the 15 games pre-injury, playing some Gold Glove at third base. Might not win it this year, but has been pretty awesome. And a lot of it was easy to beat out Willie Adames. It was easy to beat out a combination of Christian Kost, Tyler Fitzgerald, Brett Wisely, who makes me want to throw up every time he's running the bases.
And Lamont Wade Jr.
And oh wow, kind of forgot about LMJ. Has he been picked up, by the way? I feel like he was.
Yeah, he's playing for the Angels now.
Has he turned it around at all?
I saw a screenshot of him on first base, so
got on somehow. Yeah, right. Probably a walk, knowing Lamont Wade.
Maybe wore an inside fastball.
Yeah, right. All right, you got, what do you have left? Just outfielder?
Just outfielder. I'm gonna take Jung-Hoo.
Okay.
Even if Yaz, I think overall has been a little better numbers wise in the season. Jung-Hoo Lee is a cultural pick. And
who's the more fun player?
He's going to be here a lot longer than Yaz from here on out. Yaz has been with the Giants for a long time.
And he's a free agent after this year, I believe, right?
Yeah, this will be the last year Yaz is on the Giants, I think.
You think?
It'll be happy trails. Like, thanks for being a good Giant. But yeah, I'm taking Jung-Hoo Lee.
I like it. All right. Well, that was the first draft of the Bay Area beat. I think we'll have to figure out a way to get the scorecard on Twitter or something. Maybe have our 40 listeners vote on it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I could do some graphics.
There we go. Sponsored by KNBR's Jack Loder. What do you think, man? We're 25 minutes in. Do you want to call it? You want to get out of here? Do you want to talk Warriors at all? I don't know.
Let's do Warriors another time.
Let's do Warriors another time.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm also just kind of dominating the kitchen right now for my roommates, so I kind of have to run.
All right, you got to go. Last thing I kind of want to ask you, if this is okay.
Yeah.
We got a month left before the trade deadline. Is there any position you want to see the Giants look to upgrade come July 31st?
Well, yes, second base for
Yep.
sure. I don't know if the answer is external. I don't know if they want to give maybe Marco Luciano some run. It's easy to have forgot about Marco Luciano. He's sitting for good power in AAA. The average hasn't been there. Brandon Lau from the Rays, I think a lot of people have thrown around, but the thing with the expanded playoffs is Manfred has kind of like killed the trade deadline because so many teams still feel like they're in it, and they are. And so there's not going to be as many sellers. I think they need to move the trade deadline to like mid-August.
Mm-hmm.
Let like teams play 15 more games than they would before the trade deadline, and kind of figure out if they're pretenders. So I'd like to see something done about second base because it's a glaring hole. And unlike shortstop and center field and catcher, where our offensive inefficiency is spoken for on defense and spoken for in the long term, I think second base is definitely, there's a lot more flexibility in terms of who you can move off of.
I think that's the most coveted position for the Giants. I'm a little disappointed. I really thought Tyler Fitzgerald was going to build off of his awesome rookie year last year, and
brutal,
just
man.
hasn't.
His power just got totally zapped.
Which was one of his best attributes last year.
Yeah,
like
he was hitting bombs.
I'm pretty sure he had 10 home runs in like June or July, like a single month, and was like,
yeah, there was a stretch where he went crazy.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's great. I would love a second baseman. I don't know if we need a fifth starter at this point. Like, probably not if we're going to only have 4 in the playoff rotation. But who do you trust as the third guy right now behind Ray and Webb? Is it Roop? Is it Birdsong? Because it's not Verlander for me. Yeah,
it's got to be Roop. Roop's been awesome, and I think Birdsong's had a couple poor starts back to back, but I'm not ready to panic on him yet. I think he'll be okay. I think it's Roop. I think Roop will be Roop. Roop is a dog.
Yeah, I love. He's been awesome. He's like a 3.5 ERAs. I definitely think been the Giants' third most consistent pitcher. All right, so Giants have an 86.5 over/under win total. We got 2 months left of baseball, 2.5 months. Are they going over? It was 79.5 preseason, so they made up about 7 games on Vegas's expectations.
I think they're going over. Optimistically, I think they're going to have a couple hot stretches in the second half that get them to 90 wins. I think it'll be good for a wild card spot.
I think it's going to be right around there. I think 86.5 is a great number. I took over 79.5 preseason, which feels good now, but they're even odds to make the playoffs. So right now, locked into that second seed, but in the wild card. But there's a lot of teams kind of gunning there. You got San Diego, St. Louis, Cincinnati. There's a bunch kind of all grouped there. So let's get some good pitching. Let's get some timely bats. Let's maybe not be as terrible around the base paths the last 3 months of the season, and I think we can talk playoffs in October.
Yeah, dude. Hopefully, really hopefully. Let's talk Warriors free agency next week.
That sounds great. Thanks for coming on, Jack. Go Dubs, go Giants, go Niners. Always. Take care. All right, see you, man.